So, what was the Bible of Jesus and the apostles and the original church? For Jesus and for the first Christians, their Bible was something we call the Septuagint. It's abbreviated LXX, which is the Roman numeral 70, because of a tradition that it was translated into Greek by 70 scholars. So the point is that this is the Old Testament in Greek. Now, the Bible of Jesus and the apostles did include the 7 so-called deuterocanonical books: Tobit, Judith, 1st and 2nd Maccabees, Wisdom, Sirach, and Baruch. Now, deuterocanon means like a secondary canon, but it really wasn't so for Jesus and the apostles. And in fact, Jesus quoted from or alluded to these books, and that's going to be the subject of my next video. Some people also call this collection of books the Apocrypha, but that's not really correct, because apocryphal documents are those which were never meant to be included in Scripture. So remember that in the original church, authority was in apostolic succession first and foremost. That means what was passed down as the teaching of the church from teacher to student. And the hierarchy of the church was based on this apprenticeship model, the teaching passed down from one generation to the next. And so if you want more on that, see my videos on why Christianity is like Kung Fu, and on the hierarchy, the video, Did the Original Church Have Bishops? The whole point of this is that the trustworthiness of the teachings of the church were based on this unbroken succession of teachers. And that means that the teaching of the church and the passing on of tradition actually comes before the New Testament was written. The New Testament was then written to write down what was already being taught in the original church. The New Testament records the interpretations of the Old Testament in light of the incarnation. And so the Gospels tell us the story of Jesus' ministry, his death, and his resurrection. But I have to point out, there were no lost books of the Bible, if you've heard about those. Now, there were, at a later time, some other Gospels that were written that aren't in our Bible. The Gnostics wrote their own Gospels, and the Adoptionists also wrote their own Gospels. But these were written much later. They're not by the people that they claim to be by, and they were never considered to be included in our New Testament. Now, so we have in our New Testament the 4 canonical Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John, which were the only 4 that were ever meant to be there. And again, I talk more about this in my books. And then we have the book of Acts, which tells the story of an infant church going through a process of trial and error as it figures out what the church is going to be. And so it's important to point out that when I talk about the original church, I don't mean just the church that we see in the book of Acts, because the church of Acts chapter 2 or Acts chapter 4 didn't even last until the end of the book of Acts. Well, anyway, the rest of the New Testament is mostly a collection of letters from the apostles. And so most of the New Testament, including the Gospels, were written between the late 40s and the late 60s of the first century. A few books, like the book of Revelation, were written more toward the end of the first century. But it was the church fathers who chose which of these early documents were going to be included in the Bible as the New Testament. And so it's important to see that the table of contents of the Bible is a part of our tradition. The table of contents of the Bible is not in the Bible. And I'm going to say more about this in an upcoming video as well. Also want to bust the myth about Constantine. The Emperor Constantine did not decide what books were going to be in the Bible. That's a complete myth. So if you heard that one, forget about it. So why are those 7 Old Testament books not in some Bibles? It's because they were taken out over time after the Protestant Reformation. First, they were set aside as a separate section within the Old Testament. Then they were put at the back of the Bible and then removed altogether. But let's be clear, they were not added later by the ancient churches of the Roman Catholic and the Eastern Orthodox communions. They were removed by those denominations that came along later. And so those books of the Bible were in the Bible of Jesus and the apostles. Well, anyway, for more on the canon and the Old and New Testaments, see my books, Reading the Church Fathers. Make sure you get the revised 2022 version of that, and Reading Scripture Like the Early Church. And you might want to think about joining my Original Church Bible Study. It's already going. Please join us. I hope to see you there. Thanks. Hey, thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. I really appreciate that. Please share this video with your friends, and please join me in the Original Church community on locals.com. Don't forget that if you join the Original Church community on locals.com, you can join me each week for a live, in-depth, chronological Bible study. It's live streamed every Saturday, but you can watch it later if you're not available. So join me for that, and I'll see you there. I hope to see you there. I hope to see you there, and I'll see you there.